Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be going over the Math Non-Calculator Practice Test 5 from the official SAT study guide by the College Board. Question number 10. So we're starting to get into the harder questions. So before I start this question, I want to talk about factor patterns. There's two really cool factor patterns that it's really helpful to know for the SAT. The first one's called the difference of two squares. Okay, and you learned this in Algebra 2. I refer to it as dots, difference of two squares, dots, difference of two squares. And that factor pattern, if you see x squared minus y squared, you've got two perfect squares being subtracted. Then the factor pattern allows you to factor it into two linear factors of x plus y and x minus y. The other really cool factor pattern is a perfect square trinomial. A perfect square trinomial is when you have the first and last term are perfect squares. That last term is a positive perfect square, so it's always going to be a plus sign. And the middle term is actually double the square roots, the product of the square roots of the first and the last term. And that really cool factor pattern works out to be the square root of the first term, the sine of the middle term, the square root of the last term, quantity squared. Now, I know I went through that pretty quickly, but if you can go over these two factor patterns, it's really quite helpful. So it came up in this question. That's why I mention it. So they gave us that a squared plus b squared equaled z, and that 8ab equaled y. So if I substituted those into 4z plus 8y, you get 4 times a squared plus b squared plus 8ab. Well, and I happened to notice that 8 was double 4, so that actually kind of told me something. So when I distributed the 4, I decided that I was going to rewrite this in the form I'm most used to. So 4a squared plus 8ab plus 4b squared. The fact that this was a perfect square and this was a positive perfect square made me check and say to myself, okay, is this a perfect square trinomial? Especially because all of these answers are the result of a perfect square trinomial, which is the square of a binomial. So it is a perfect square trinomial because the square root of this is 2a, the square root of this is 2a, and if I multiply those, I get 2b. I get 4ab, and if I double that, I get 8ab. So if I want to factor it properly, I know my result's going to be the square of a binomial, and the first term is going to be 2a, the last term is going to be 2b, and it's going to be the sine of that middle term, so plus 2b. And there, I'd find my answer would be b. All right, so if you really want to work on difference of two squares and perfect square trinomials, check out my video on these two topics, dots and perfect square trinomials, and it may help you just get those more familiar in your head again, okay? Hopefully that was helpful. Have a great night.